Okay, let's dive in. Do you ever have that feeling like you're wrestling with yourself? One part of you wants to say, get up early for a run,
Oh, yeah.
and the other part is just desperate for 5 more minutes of sleep. Or, you want to buckle down on a project, but the urge to just scroll endlessly,
Yeah.
it's strong.
That internal battle, that friction,
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly why change often feels, well, so incredibly hard.
Right.
And that feeling, that sort of being pulled two ways at once, is really central to what we're digging into today. We're looking at Chip and Dan Heath's book, Switch, How to Change Things When Change is Hard.
Okay.
Think of this as maybe a guide to figuring out why we get stuck and maybe some ways to make change feel a bit more manageable.
And Switch, it's not just theory, is it? They looked at loads of real-world examples.
Exactly. Everything from like doctors changing hospital routines to individuals just trying to kick a bad habit. They were searching for the patterns, what actually works when people succeed at making big shifts. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the really actionable stuff from Switch, insights that you can use, whether it's for personal goals or maybe leading change at work.
Yeah, get those clear takeaways, maybe find a few surprises about why we act the way we do.
Precisely.
So where do they start? You mentioned that internal battle.
Right. They kick off with this fantastic metaphor, the rider and the elephant.
Okay.
So picture a person, the rider, sitting on top of this huge elephant. The rider, that's your rational side, your planning, analyzing, goal-setting brain.
Makes sense. The planner.
Yep. And the elephant, that's your emotional core, feelings, gut instincts, habits, and it's got like way more power, brute strength.
Okay. And that's where the trouble starts, right? The writer wants to go one way.
Like that 5 a.m. workout plan.
Uh-huh.
But when the alarm actually goes off, the elephant just wants warmth and sleep. And guess who usually wins that fight without some clever strategy?
The elephant. Yeah, I can see that. So things like those annoying alarm clocks that run away, that's the rider trying to outsmart the elephant.
Exactly. It's acknowledging that we're not just one unified mind. Like when you start a diet, the rider clears out the pantry, makes the plan.
Right.
But the elephant walks into the break room and sees donuts. That struggle. That's the rider versus the elephant right there.
Okay, that metaphor is really helpful. So one of the first big surprises in the book tackles why we resist change. We think it's laziness.
But it's often exhaustion.
Uh-huh.
That's the first big insight. What looks like resistance is often just that the rider, our rational side, is tired out.
Tired out. How so?
Well, they talk about self-control being like a muscle. It gets fatigued. There's this famous study, maybe you've heard of it, with radishes and cookies.
I think so. Remind me.
Okay, so people came in supposedly for a taste test. There were fresh cookies and radishes. Some people were told to eat the cookies. Others had to resist the cookies and eat the radishes.
Tough task.
Right. Resisting those cookies took effort. Afterwards, both groups were given a tricky puzzle to solve. The ones who'd resisted the cookies, they gave up much, much faster.
Wow. Because they'd used up their willpower on the cookies.
Exactly. Their self-control muscle was exhausted. So think about making a big change, learning a new system at work, sticking to a budget, whatever. It requires constant monitoring, constant decision-making from the rider.
Uh-huh.
All that mental effort drains you. And when you're drained, you might just stop trying, but it looks like you're resisting the change itself or being lazy.
That makes so much sense. Like after a day of really tough decisions, you just feel depleted.
Totally. Even just managing your emotions takes a toll. Restraining yourself, being patient. It uses up that mental energy, which then affects your focus later on. So yeah, fatigue often gets mislabeled as resistance.
Okay, key takeaway number 1.
Yeah.
Check for exhaustion before assuming resistance. What's the next surprise?
The next one is kind of the flip side. What looks like laziness is often just a lack of clarity for the writer.
Lack of clarity, meaning the plan isn't specific enough.
Exactly. The writer needs clear directions. If the goal is vague, like be healthier, the writer gets confused. What does that actually mean? It can spin its wheels, analyzing options, getting overwhelmed, analysis paralysis.
Right, be healthier could mean anything. Diet, exercise, sleep.
Right.
Where do you even start?
Precisely. Compare that to the example in the book about a campaign telling people simply buy 1% milk instead of whole milk.
Oh, okay. Very specific.
Super specific. And guess what? Sales of low-fat milk shot up. It gave the writer a clear, simple instruction. No ambiguity.
So the strategy is to script the critical moves, as they call it.
Yes. Break it down. Don't just set a big goal. Define the specific, crucial actions needed to get there.
And this applies to big organizational changes too, right? There was that story about the guy Stegner.
John Stegner, yeah.
Yeah.
At the manufacturing company. He needed to cut costs significantly, like $1 billion. Huge, abstract goal.
Seems overwhelming.
Totally. But instead of presenting spreadsheets full of numbers, he did something brilliant. He found a pile of all the different ill-fitting, expensive work gloves the company bought from various suppliers.
Gloves.
Just gloves. He dumped this mountain of mismatched gloves on the boardroom table and said, basically, this is ridiculous. It was tangible. Everyone could see the waste, feel the inefficiency.
So he made the problem concrete, visible.
Exactly. It wasn't just a number on a page anymore. It was a physical pile of inefficiency. That engaged the elephant. The emotional side saw the problem, and that motivated people to tackle the bigger cost-saving initiative. Focusing on that one clear, relatable issue got things moving.
So clarity for the writer, but you also need to engage the elephant, which leads to the third surprise.
Right. Well, it looks like resistance is often just a lack of motivation for the elephant. You can have the clearest plan in the world, but if the elephant doesn't want to go, you're stuck. This is where they introduced the see, feel, change framework.
See, feel, change. Okay.
The idea is that analysis and data rarely move the elephant. You need people to see something that triggers an emotion, makes them feel something, and then they're motivated to change.
Like the gloves example. Seeing the pile made them feel the waste.
Precisely. Or Robin Waters at Target. She wanted merchants to embrace trendier, more colorful clothing lines instead of just showing sales projections.
Yeah.
She created these physical mock-ups, these displays in the boardroom, showing what the stores could look like. She let them see the vibrant potential, feel the excitement of the new look.
Much more powerful than a spreadsheet.
Way more powerful. That emotional connection is what creates what they call destination postcards.
Destination postcards, like a vision of the future.
Exactly. A vivid, compelling picture of where you're headed that appeals to both the writer's logic and, crucially, the elephant's emotions. Think of Crystal Jones, that first-grade teacher. Instead of talking about test scores, she told her kids, you need to know this because soon you'll be third graders. That created this exciting aspirational image for them.
I like that. Simple but effective.
Or Laura Esserman, the doctor who envisioned a breast cancer center where patients get everything they need under one roof. That vision resonated emotionally with everyone involved. It wasn't just about efficiency. It was about compassionate, integrated care.
So these destination postcards, they're different from, say, SMART goals.
Yeah, they argue SMART goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound are great for like steady progress when motivation isn't the main issue.
Okay.
But for big changes, where you need to generate that initial push, that emotional buy-in, SMART goals can sometimes feel a bit dry. They don't always light a fire under the elephant.
Right. They appeal more to the writer. Okay, so we need to direct the writer, motivate the elephant. Let's talk strategies for the writer first. How do you guide that rational side?
A key strategy is find the bright spots.
Bright spots, meaning successes.
Yeah, existing successes. Look for where the desired change is already happening, even in a small way. This shows the writer it's possible and gives a blueprint. The classic example is Jerry Sternin in Vietnam.
Oh, the malnutrition work.
Exactly. He went into villages with severe childhood malnutrition. Instead of bringing in outside experts with grand plans, he asked, are there any kids here who are healthy?
And there were.
Yes. Despite the poverty, some families had well-nourished children. He didn't focus on the problem. He studied these bright spot families. What were they doing differently?
Simple things, wasn't it? Like feeding kids smaller meals more often, adding greens.
Exactly. Things the community already knew how to do. He just identified what was working locally and helped spread those practices. He found the solution within the problem.
That's powerful, focusing on what works.
It's similar to the exception question in solutions-focused therapy. Instead of asking, what's wrong, you ask, tell me about a time when the problem wasn't happening, even just a little bit.
Finding those moments of success.
Yeah, like the story of Bobby, the kid always getting into trouble. The counselor asked about times he didn't get into trouble. Turns out he was fine in art class. That was the bright spot, the exception, something to build on.
Okay, so find the bright spots. What else for the writer?
Point to the destination. We touched on this with Crystal Jones's third grader's vision. You need a clear and compelling goal, not just an analytical one. It gives the writer direction and a bit of inspiration.
Got it. Clear goal.
Then, critically, shrink the change. Big goals can paralyze the rider and spook the elephant.
Break it down.
Break it way down. Make the first steps incredibly small and achievable. Think of the 5-minute room rescue. Just tackle one small area for 5 minutes. Or Mary Carr needing budget cuts. She started with tiny weekly reductions.
Makes it less daunting.
Hugely less daunting. Stephen Kellman reformed government procurement, a massive task. He started by getting agencies to just use procurement cards for small, everyday purchases.
Oh.
A tiny first step that built momentum.
Small wins.
Exactly. Which leads to the last point for the rider. Make progress visible. Celebrate those small wins. That gives the rider proof you're moving forward and gives the elephant a reason to feel hopeful and keep going.
Like the miracle scale in therapy, or how Coach Tony Dungy focuses football teams on achieving really immediate small goals.
Precisely. Build momentum through visible progress.
Okay, that covers guiding the rider. Now, motivating the elephant, finding the feeling.
This is crucial. Logic often isn't enough. Remember John Stegner and the gloves. Seeing and feeling the problem motivated people more than cost-saving charts. You have to connect emotionally.
Find the feeling. Got it. What else moves the elephant?
Identity. People are motivated to act in ways that align with who they are or who they want to be.
How does that work in practice?
Think of Paul Butler's campaign to save the St. Lucia parrot. It was near extinction. His campaign didn't just focus on environmental facts, it fostered national pride. It became, this is our parrot. We are St. Lucians and we protect our parrot.
So the change became part of their identity.
Exactly. Another powerful motivator is fostering a growth mindset. This is Carol Dweck's work, believing your abilities can be developed rather than being fixed.
The fixed versus growth mindset.
Right. When people believe they can grow and improve, they're more willing to take on challenges to persist through difficulties. Molly Howard, the principal, transformed her school by instilling this, expecting students to keep working until they met a high standard, reinforcing that they could improve. That motivated the elephant, the belief in potential.
Okay, so find the feeling, appeal to identity, cultivate a growth mindset. What about the environment around us?
Big factor. That's shaping the path.
Yeah.
Making the right behaviors easier and the wrong behaviors harder.
Make it easy to do the right thing.
Yep. Remember the food drive study. Just giving people a map and suggesting a specific time to donate dramatically increased contributions. It removed small friction points.
So small tweaks to the path can have a big impact.
Huge. Building habits is part of this too. Using action triggers. If X happens, then I will do Y. Peter Gollwitzer's research shows this pre-planning makes you much more likely to follow through, automating the behavior for the elephant.
Like when I finish breakfast, I will immediately put my dishes in the dishwasher.
Perfect example. Reduces the decision-making load. Then there's rallying the herd. We're social creatures. We look to others for cues.
Using social pressure for good.
Kind of. Making the desired behavior visible and seem normal. Jay Winston's designated driver campaign did this brilliantly through TV shows. It normalized the idea. Kellman did it with procurement reform by highlighting the agencies that were adopting the new methods.
Make it seem like everyone's doing it.
Or at least that the smart people are. And finally, sometimes you just need to tweak the environment itself. Make the path lead inevitably to the right place.
How so?
Like removing a frustrating call queuing system forces better customer service. Using smaller plates makes it harder to overeat. The most striking example, maybe, is the soldiers returning from Vietnam.
Oh, right. Many had heroin habits there.
But when they came home, back to a completely different environment, different cues, different social circles, the vast majority just stopped. The path changed, and the behavior changed with it.
Wow. The power of the environment, the path. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The core message from Switch seems to be it's a three-part strategy.
That's right. First, direct the rider. Give that rational mind clear, specific instructions. Find bright spots. Script the critical moves. Point to the destination.
Clarity is key.
Second, motivate the elephant. You need the emotional buy-in. Find the feeling. Connect to identity. Foster a growth mindset. Make the elephant want to move.
Find the feeling, not just the logic.
And third, shape the path. Make the journey easier. Tweak the environment. Build habits. Rally the herd. Remove friction.
Rider, elephant, path.
Got it. And when you understand those dynamics, change feels less like this impossible struggle against resistance, and more like getting your rational side, your emotional side, and your environment all working together.
Makes sense. So a final thought for everyone listening. Maybe think about a change you're trying to make right now. Where's the friction?
Good question. Is your rider confused? Does your elephant lack motivation? Or is the path just making it too difficult? Where could you apply one of these ideas more clarity, finding the feeling, or tweaking the path?
Or even look back at a change you did manage successfully. Can you see the writer, elephant, and path elements that were working then? What made it click?
Yeah, analyzing past successes through that lens can be really insightful. And of course, if this has sparked your interest, the book Switch itself, or looking into researchers like Carol Dweck or the Heath brothers' other work, offers a much deeper dive into all these concepts.